Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Steel Toe Podcast or Steel Toe Leadership Podcast. Today we have Jessie Houlihan with Onyx, and Jessie's amazing. If you are not following her yet, then you probably should, and you will be after today. So I'm going to let Jessie just kind of give us a high level, well, first of all, Jessie, how are you doing today for real?
I'm doing well today for real, and I'm glad that that's true.
Yeah, I hear you.
How are you?
I'm doing well today too. I'm really glad we actually pushed our recording back by like half an hour, and it was a blessing because my kids are home right now, and I know you know what it's like to be juggling kids all over the place. And so, literally, if we'd started half an hour ago, I would have had kids on my feet screaming, yelling at each other, and this would not be as peaceful as it is currently. So, I'm okay with that.
I feel like that will be the theme for the podcast today is this like balance between flexibility and flow and structure to be able to be in the sacred middle between the two and still drive forward. But as a parent, a mother, partner, a business leader, that's always a practice, isn't it?
Yeah, that's really great that you said that because that's like on my list of questions is to talk about balance because I think that's something that you and I probably excel at, but also are very humble in that space. So before we get too deep into it, I would love it if you would just give us a high level walkthrough of like your career path so far, like the origin story of your career.
Yeah, my name is Jessica, Jess, anything you want to call me. I'm from Wisconsin. I'm one of four. I grew up close to my parents and grandparents, but really rural. And looked forward to moving to the city, out to a city somewhere, to sort of begin life. And
Hmm.
I was always very driven, always had little businesses and started working young, always wanted to have my own money and really create, do things. I don't think I really had context for what that was until I got to school. I went to the U. I got degrees in environmental science and journalism, 2 degrees in 3.5 years, and had 6 internships during that time. I'm really grateful actually that my parents raised us to be very hardworking and self-sufficient. We had to provide for ourselves. So having to work was a really good thing for me. I always had jobs from like 6 a.m. I took as many credits as I could because I was afraid of debt and wanted to get kind of done and be working. So I really saw my internships as that I needed to make money, and I was testing myself at like, do I want to do what I think I want to do? So I tried my hand at government work, nonprofit work, publishing, both as a freelancer, as an editor. I also worked in labs, like as a scientist, public relations. I really knew I wanted to sit at the intersection of like data, structure, like the hard sciences, the hard math, and then communication, sociology, behavior. I really love that. How do we drive human evolution and change so we can do better together? But as I studied those markets and myself, I found many frustrations of like government goes too slow. Nonprofit is still subject to the donor dollar and ego. It's like, how do I actually do good? Publishing was really kind of dissolving into an unethical market, 24-hour news cycles. Hay was going down. It was all advertiser dollars, which we're seeing play out now of this like hyperpolar media that is for sale. It is bought. But as I watched it and saw it cannibalize itself, it's like the ethics were raped of media. So oddly enough, when I graduated in 2008, the way to have the greatest impact was to work in business. If I could make something make sense economically, if I can make it work, then I can drive it. I can grow it. And I think too, that was really my connection into, I really love the natural world. I feel very connected to nature. I feel like we are a part of nature. But capitalism is kind of a part of nature. When we don't rig it, it's kind of rigged right now, but it actually can be an amazing vehicle for driving progress. So when I graduated in 2008, I got hired by a international consulting firm. It was called Casper Vandertak Consulting, based in Amsterdam. But their North American office, they aptly branded CVDT Consulting. So I worked for them here, but I worked on projects really around the world, both clients here in North America and Minnesota, but also doing large renewable energy development projects in Africa and Asia that were funded by countries like France and Germany back when they were buying carbon offsets through a program via the UN. So it was a really amazing segue into, doing large scale development projects, working with large companies, analyzing carbon, analyzing impact, understanding that linked with an economy. But as we all know now, right at the edge of an economy collapse, really. So I got to work on large projects, but also watch that carbon get devalued, and watch a business not know how to adapt. So I went from doing the work as a consultant to seeing that the North American office wasn't going to be very viable. And our marketer was an amazing person, who, when I said outright, I don't see that you guys have a strategy for evolving your focus here, agreed that I could start kind of cold calling people to try to sell work myself. I'm just figuring out who does need help here. And then that's why at 22, I started just cold calling anyone I could figure out to be like, who needs a consultant? I was architects, governments, schools, campuses. I'm just trying to sell work. And that was really good, having to get people on the phone, keep them on the phone, figure out what they need. And in 2008, 2009, that was, helping them reduce cost, helping them improve viability of their organization. So sometimes I was able to sell work and get in and help retrofit facilities and look at their processes. And for me, for my mind, that was also the chance to really pick up and be like, how do you sell something? Step in to do the work, bill the work, really understand organizations' adaptive needs, not just your insular service. In the process, I ended up working on a lot of lean manufacturing and just sort of retrofits of facilities. I also got at the table on a few projects that were lead projects for architects or engineers. I was there in a technical capacity, but I fell in love. It clicked for me. It's like, we are all sitting here in these different seats with different goals and objectives in mind, speaking different languages, trying to make these decisions together, and the decisions that we make have a 40-year impact. It's it is a huge opportunity. But I was not in the right seat as a technical consultant, And then I ended up booking a client at the time that was a tech company here in Minnesota. They were a hardware company that installed energy and refrigerant hardware, and they were wanting to build a SaaS, a software as a service, that went with that for clients, really any client with lots of distributed entities. So they can manage the energy and refrigerants from one system. It's good for reporting and compliance. But also we wanted to add service provider management to make sure that if a system wasn't operating, we immediately alerted to service providers, handled it, cut down on that inefficiency or leak or problem, save them costs, but also environmental impact. It was really cool as a client to consult on the sustainability part, but I fell in love with the business model. I was like, wow, this is cool. And then ended up having the chance to meet with the CEO, who was this amazing tech entrepreneur, one of the people who brought tech investment to the Twin Cities. Really the person who grew a company called Retech and sold it to Oracle downtown. And this was their new big focus, trying to take this company, buy out a board, bring in investment, buy other companies, grow globally, and then sell that company. And so I then took a job to then come work for him, really working on marketing and product development to understand compliance. So that grew into a marketing and sales focus as that company did go through their trajectory. And I had the chance to work directly for the C-suite and the board, which was amazing. Overseeing marketing and sales strategy for a period of time there, helping launch the first user conference. But working with that CEO, learning how to build, create a market, adapt, build teams, create new structures, take in new data, adapt. It was unbelievable to work for someone who was, I think, kind of a tech genius, worked aggressively, and it was before I had kids. It was ideal timing, as you know my energy, because clearly energy that was perfect for me. They really invested in me, gave me the chance to drive and do, and I worked nonstop and figured out I have a lot of competence in this work. I like it. I can drive things. Now, I also saw some misalignment of ethics, of things that I care about in use of my energy for the long term. So I got to spend a couple of years working for him, and then did choose to leave. And I was being heavily recruited at the time to go to other tech companies, but I didn't want to go into tech. I was really tapping back in. I'm like, I've learned these aggressive business skills. How do I want to apply them now? And I kept, as I reflected, coming back to buildings. It's like I keep working in and around buildings. I love buildings. Buildings consume a ton of energy. The materials have a huge impact. They impact our health as we're in them, the environmental health, but also all those materials, supply chains, upstream, downstream, how we adapt them. I'm just fascinated by them. So I thought, I think I want to apply aggressive business skills. And it seems like folks in architecture, engineering, construction, development, it's like folks go into that field because they knew someone in it. They had a segue into it. They're there. They're maybe good at being an architect, so now they run a team of architects. They're maybe a good contractor, so now they run a construction company. But rarely do they have the business focus, the impact focus, some of those other skills. It seems like they kind of are in the market and they grow. And these are markets that don't have a lot of new ideas, tech ideas, new, fresh thinking. So for me, I really wanted to intersect into built space, but bring that expansive thinking, aggressive evolutionary business thinking. I really thought I'd land in like architecture or development, but I met a person who had a construction company. It was 2012. They were coming out of the recession, kind of struggling to get their footing. And it was one of those fateful meetings where, halfway through the meeting, it shifted from a job interview to a discussion around what was really going on in the business. And had the opportunity to come work for him and really put together a SWOT analysis. So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and go study the whole market, supporting him with the idea of either restructuring the business to get it back on track or to help him sell it if it wasn't going to be something to get back on track. And for me, I was at the time helping at the tech company with buying, selling businesses, analyzing things. That's what we were doing. So I was excited for the chance to come be in the construction or AEC and development space, learn the market, and support someone who clearly cared a lot about his staff. And that company, Stahl Construction, second company, Tecton Construction, they were, a mid-sized contractor, pretty recessed at the time. Lots of great experience in the past, I discovered. Lots of good big projects, but maybe a market fit had changed. And now they were doing work that was less profitable. They did not have consistency. They did not have marketing. They were really disconnected internally. And they needed a lot of these great business fundamentals, like structure, process, evolution, doing some of that work, and then focusing on the market sectors where they could make more money, cut out some waste, focus on where there's profits and add more value. And really from there, when I started to analyze it, both staff internally and position in the market, it's like there was value there. It didn't need to get sold at a devalued asset. There was the opportunity to get this business back on track, and there were people there that cared. So I put together a 5-year reposition plan that we then integrated with leadership and the owner, and then integrated with staff, which is the real magic of alignment. Started to integrate traction fundamentals, but also just working with them on good business fundamentals, pulling their ideas in the restructure. And we ended up, because of that, having alignment to close on this 5-year reposition plan in 3 years. We also grew the company pretty significantly from like 25-30 million to 125 million in 5 years. That work, that was a huge run for us. I stayed from doing that initial assessment to be a director, to be a VP, to step into the presidency. I'm running that company really as I had my 2 sons. My oldest son is 11 now, Fitz Riley. He's a mainly aggressive, smart, precocious, caring little boy. Loves soccer. And then Orion Woods, my 7-year-old, also in that mix. So really, Orion, I ended up having him. Fitz, I came to restructure the company, had Fitz, decided to step into leadership after that. Grew the company. We were going through a lot, restructuring what we were doing. And then we got to a point that the work we were doing was way more sophisticated in the market. We were consulting, supporting front end, and really needed to shift the brand and presence to reflect what we were doing. And that's when I had my little Orion Woods. It was a period of like, okay, we've reached this new platform. Let's reinvest in the business. Let's rebrand. Let's move. Let's build out a good office. Let's look at structure. Let's implement traction. Let's further implement lean thinking. And that little magic boy came along with it too. And yeah, so we kind of at that point, then we're diversifying markets, we expanded locations, kind of stabilized. There are these points in growing businesses where there's a reinvestment point before you can scale again. I think at this point we started to work on technology and broader process and alignment, really growing a leadership team, growing structure for that business. I also went through seasons with the owner of whether I should buy the business or not. Initially, I just wasn't interested. I knew I wanted to shift from just general contracting into more partner-based work, investment, development. So we had that misalignment early on where I knew I shouldn't buy something if I wanted to keep evolving towards more oversight. But as I continued to grow that company, it felt like mine in CZ's. So we went through seasons of whether I should buy it or not and went through those rounds. One of those times, the owner did get sick, and we had a long season of trying to get that company on track. And then also COVID happened, which for a lot, that was a big moment of initiation. We considered my team, my work. I did want to buy it. So I lined up my investors and started to just work on what that was. And we started to work towards this transition. I also started to get really good advice in the market from folks who'd also bought companies, or some of my investors who did this routinely, to start to look for signs of healthy or unhealthy negotiations. At the end of the day, saw that thing go awry. And unfortunately, it's so interesting too. I think one of my life lessons of like what I invest and hopefulness, what I hope is happening. I think sometimes my willingness to tolerate things that are less than healthy with the idea of this broader goal that I'm working towards, part of it's my superpower. I can work in a really hard market. I can do a lot of things. I can have kids while running businesses. I can do that as a single mom through season. That's a superpower, but also choosing to be intentional about how I use that energy to do what. And I think for me, running Stall and Tecton, there were these moments where I was really dissatisfied, knew that I needed and wanted more, knew that just running those businesses in the way that it was required, running them for this person, the energy that it took for X outcome. There were clear times where I felt out of alignment for me, for my soul. But I was so invested in the people, so invested in what I was doing, felt like I couldn't go. And ultimately, when it did end up really unhealthy and misaligned, I felt the shackles come off, like I could go. That I don't, really no matter what, if this person doesn't want to sell their business, if it's not going to be that there's a reasonable target respect or good decision-making, good ethical decision-making, if I'm beholden to that. So I'll have to routinely spend my energy negotiating with something that's out of alignment. That is not going to change. I can't choose to stay there. And that is one of my personal truths in life. I think I've left relationships, I've left businesses, I've left situations when they're no longer healthy to choose health for myself and my children. That's pretty interwoven with all of my career. When it's misaligned and I need to choose the right thing, I will. Also, being a single mom, being beholden to providing for my family for the majority of my life, I yield that, defending both my time with them and the maximum value I can get from my time. And then I can choose to actually spend my time and energy on the things that matter to me, even the things that don't pay me, because I can command the right value for my time. Yeah. I'm so grateful for my time at Stall and Tecton, though. My staff, getting to grow that, getting to build the biggest high school in the state of Iowa, the Hennepin County 911 call center, the Army National Guard Readiness Center. I'm building amazing hotels. We built this federal post office building in downtown St. Paul into a high-end, beautiful hotel. I love adaptive reuse. I fell in love with construction, with my teams, in the fields, learning lean construction, place of its time. So even though at the end of that 10 years, we decided not to transact and I left, that was such a fertile, important time in my life, getting grounded in this market and ultimately fighting for the fact that I fucking love development, fucking love construction, fucking love all of it. Like dirty boots, like to be in the field, love lean. People may not always want to hear me in those places, but I really mostly talk to the people already doing it. That's who I learn it from. And I love to just support and elevate what they're seeing to make sure we make better decisions. And it's amazing. So when I left that company, 3 years ago now, it took a little bit of time. We had organized some projects that were kind of pseudo developments. The owner at the time was very anti-development. I was shifting to start to invest in real estate, invest in commercial real estate, really seeing the way to thrive and drive a business like this, even the way to pay him what he would want for those businesses was to invest in real estate, grow my net worth, realize money in a variety of ways so I could stabilize. When you own things, you can make money in a variety of ways, work towards living off passive income so you can do the projects you want to do. Really add value, not run a chaos business every year, pull that out, be overtaxed for it. The value is being able to invest, to consider long-term choices. So I was shifting to start to do that anyways. I had a number of projects where I was consulting as a developer, and the company was going to be the contractor. But that with my shift, it just didn't make sense. Also, my former owner is known to be litigious, just to be challenging at times emotionally. So I knew, number one, I just wanted the best thing for those projects and I didn't want to be dealing with additional risk. Leaving that company was like one of the worst breakups of my life. Like it was heart-wrenching for me. So I was going through true grief in general too. So phase one was make sure those projects could be stable, make sure they were okay without me, make sure they could find other contractors to execute it. So that was the first phase. And then the second phase was, what do I want to do? I'd already been looking at investing in projects with two folks. One was my best friend, Daniel, who I ended up marrying, cut to the chase in that story. The other, his business partner, Brad Heitzinger. And they really, gosh, as a team, Brad is a tax and real estate attorney. Daniel's really focused on investments, brokerage, how do we fill things up? Both really strong angles on the market, how to perform and deliver better. And for me, I really like when I find a target to deliver. I like integrated design and construction execution so I can eliminate waste and pay people well, better perform together, aligned incentives. So we were already working on this for a while, trying to find projects together. So in that fall, we really started to invest in what would we want to do together. And for me, I really like overseeing other people's work. Sometimes things that don't hit a market return or are different or have public benefit, I still love producing that. I love producing it. I love eliminating waste there. I want to create better value for our communities, healthier projects, better value for the money. So I want to do it as a consultant where I can hyper focus, where my value for time can be focused on eliminating waste, creating the most value. Those guys are less interested in it, but they support that that's my lane of brilliance. So I want to do it as a consultant. And then together, what we want to do is we're awesome at development. We're really awesome at optimizing how we invest time and money, mechanisms of the market, incentives, banks, but also how do we utilize all the partners in this comprehensive, longer process to add value and better deliver together. So we're really focused on developing and producing that work together. And then investment, where we invest and develop, if we're investing our own money, I do love building. And I had this strong hurdle, this strong threshold starting my business of, and even as I left, I installed my former owner, his message to staff, which I heard from my staff after I left, was Jessie left because she wants to invest and develop. She doesn't like construction. We are a construction company, a general contractor, not a partner-based organization, old school. Like, I don't like this. And as I heard that from staff, it's like, oof, to feel it. Is that true for me? It's like, no, I love this. And as I started the company too in the fall, do I want to just hire other contractors in the market to do our work? If we can develop and we make money doing that, I don't need to. And it was this portal of like, no, I love this stuff. I love doing it. I love thinking it through, every part of it. I want to do it. If I'm investing my money, I got to trust me that I can handle it better than anybody else. And so then if we're invested in it, we want to do it. So we did then get our general contractor's license as well. So we established the business really in theory in the fall. Starting to focus on what we wanted to do. We established it legally that winter. Kind of off to the races immediately, booked work and had our own ideas too. So I'm so thankful that with my partners, like we were able to, we didn't, had investors lined up for a buyout. Instead, we were able to just cash flow a startup and do work on getting the right staff, the right focus, how we want to produce it. But thankfully, we're able to be profitable right off the bat, but also be partners, invested, just focused on delivering work, which helps. So lots of effort that went into being able to start from it. I'm thankful for that. As we've driven the work, we have landed it. It's like public-private partnerships. We really are very good at overseeing unique projects and helping fund and deliver those, get the right people at the table, help people understand how this works to make better decisions faster. We're really focused on doing that for like minimal cost, as targeted as possible. Expert lean execution, strategic advice. But then we are invested in the kinds of things we want to have exist, like public-private partnerships, sports complexes for public entities, cities, counties, school districts, etc. We're really into that, as well as industrial development, net zero industrial development, and small bay. So like housing, small to mid-sized businesses. We love doing that as well. So, and then we have our own portfolio. So as a GC, get to deliver to that, and then kind of the projects we feel like doing that we're excited about are in our portfolio. So our existing company with two, one is Onyx Strategic Partners, that's primarily mine, but I own it with Daniel Kurkowski and Brad Heitzinger, my business partners. I do primarily own it, so it's a women-owned business. And then they also own Obsidian Group, which is a brokerage firm, but really private equity focused on acquisition. We developed retail, we're very interested in retail, but we've also primarily focused on industrial. We have Obsidian Group. So that's career in life. Fast.
Yeah, that was great. I feel like you have such a unique path, and I totally respect that That's actually been really top of mind lately, is like the unique way that we sort of like navigate our way through opportunities that are presented to us and ones that we want to walk away from. Just looking at the way that, personally my life has changed over the past, 15 years even, but really even over the past 5 years, I always get these comments like, I can't keep track of what you're doing. And it's like, well, you don't need to. It's my business. And as long as I'm serving my passions, and as long as my bills are paid and I'm showing up authentically, that's really all that matters, right? Not letting other people define our story for us. So I wanted to just comment on one thing that you said when you're talking about actually high school and leaving high school and going into college, and then in college had all these internships. And I just wanted to comment on the fact that it's so refreshing that you felt like you needed to explore your options as opposed to feeling pigeonholed into deciding what you were going to do right then and there, and just really pursuing one thing and staying in like a silo. I think that's really cool that you explored different things, because different skill sets can be helpful to all different types of areas, and you really have to pick on like what makes me feel really good.
Yeah. I think you said a few things that have a common theme that might be one of my personal truths. So I appreciate you like reflected them in a way where I can articulate it right now. But I really study energy. I really study my energy too. So as I did that work, I was really noting that, like, man, I am aggressive. And that's not always comfortable for folks. Over the years, I've worked on how I use my energy. I'm working on balancing when I'm aggressive to when I'm soft and receptive. So that's like also a part of me. But at the time, I was just noting of like, with curiosity, not judgment, like what's true for me? How do I fit in? Like, when I imagine this career path, when I see the people that did this, it's hard for me to imagine being happy on that timeline, just noting that, right? Or when I was in a business and things like that, I think I do tend to go when it feels right. I am aggressive, I'm clear. I also have a practice of spending time with myself. I've just meditated daily since I was 17. So spending time with myself, starting the day, whether it's prayer, openness, or whatever, finding that taproot, whether it's time in your garden, whatever that is, of like presence, to then just note how you're doing, like have that first awareness, note what's coming up, etc. Start to note then. It's like then you can feel it when your energy shifting. I'm interested in something else. Ask yourself with curiosity, non-judgment, what am I interested in? And it is something that over time I've kind of fought to be like, it's fine if people want to perceive me in a bucket of mother, now I guess developer, builder, professional, whatever that looks like. But I have always allowed a lot of space for the multi-dimensional nature that is me. I have lots of interests. Most of them are not things that I'm pursuing as work or are going to pay me, but are important to me. And I do spend time, I invest time in that. I listen to my energy. And over time, it's led me to different places. Like now I'm really interested in not just building, but healing spaces, because I've spent my life also learning healing modalities. And that's something I love, I truly love. And now I see it intersect after, 20 years of it not being work that would pay me, because I don't care, but something I love and care about learning. Now I'm seeing it intersect with the work that pays me, where these larger retreat centers and healing centers need someone who understands large scale development, design, action, sustainable construction, human health, but also what these spaces are being used for. And I do. So it's like over time, just valuing that with yourself, studying your energy, knowing like at Stall, I didn't learn. There were 2 off ramps where I didn't listen to myself, where I felt very strong pulls that it was time to move on to do something else. And I didn't listen. That was the portal I needed to go through, I guess, that initiation of how far am I willing to stay in something before it's time to go. But ultimately knowing when it is and what I want to do and being able to sit with that. You do that too, Kristina. It's kind of a superpower. Like, I'm going to consult in these ways because I know that's where I can add value. It's a real initiation in our lives to get to the point where we're confident with who we are and how we want to show up and can like clearly, decisively move forward towards that.
I could not agree more. And I just think that self-awareness, which you clearly have a lot of, and I like to think that I have a lot of, I think it's one of the most important things to have as far as being an impactful leader. Like, I'm not going to listen to someone tell me how to live my life if they don't quite understand what's going on in their own life. And so I think that that's really important. You know, you talk about healing and meditation, and people can call that whatever they want. But the most important thing is that we're taking the time to know ourselves and know what's important to us and not letting ourselves be crammed into a definition that does not suit us. And so, love all that. I wanted to talk a little bit about balance and boundaries when it comes to work life balance because both have kids obviously, and we also both embrace the fact that our kids are going to be a big part of our lives, and if that means that they're a part of our work life, so be it, but there's no reason to necessarily have a complete boundary between the two, right? But there is a respect of the passion we give to our kids and the passion we give to our work and allowing our kids to see that passion. I'd love to hear you talk about that.
Yeah. I feel like I never had the choice. It was like always integrated. And I'm thankful to have worked really hard young to be at the point where I was already overseeing stuff when I started having my kids. And I've really
Mhm.
studied that over my career as I've looked at staff, where it's like in most roles, you don't have the power or autonomy to set a schedule in life that works well for you and your family. And one thing that I have, I guess, defended, one of the reasons I left that tech company and chose to get into this market was that tech company was not a healthy place to have children and it was not respected. And I saw the disconnect where I was going to be devalued there, I was going to be devalued here, and it was not going to be right. For me, young, I never daydreamed about getting married. I always knew I'd be a mom. And I thought I knew I would work. I like from when I was young, I'm like, I'm going to work and do things. I want to destroy the things that don't work and create the things that do work. And I want to travel and see. And I'm going to be a mom. I just knew it. And it's going to be super fucking important to me. I didn't expect to do it young. I had my first baby at 26. I thought I'd do it now. I'm 37. I thought I'd do it now. But I did it 10 years ago. And it all happens how it's meant to happen. But because of that, that initiation, they are so fucking important to me. And I know that I'm capable of driving work. I'm not going to succumb to like the normal way of working if it's going to hurt my family, my children. But I still had to deal with that intersection of like expectations. My job at the
Mhm.
time, I was working like not as a normal employee, but after I had my first child, chose to come on as a vice president. And that was like expected to be a normal, like, leadership kind of job and hours. And so for me, one of those initial boundaries that was important is I will work a lot. I will think about this work constantly because that's just true of my soul and nature. When I'm invested, I'm in. But I'm going to go home at the right times. I'm going to breastfeed my baby was a really big deal to me. I want to have like natural connection. I tried to have all natural births and breastfeed at least a minimum of a year. So like pumping, closeness. I'm starting my day breastfeeding with him. Like I had these really important boundaries. So work travel, I had to pump and deal with stuff. And just in general, we had to kind of meld around that. And same for, I think of like having to do daycare, what that looks like to do what, or now how I own my life. I get to invest my money and my time. I get to own my life. How I invest my time does result in, more or less financial return. But I get to look at my hours and my time with my partner and we get to really think about our values. And I don't want to conform with normal hours around things like that. Over time, I still have this arc of moving towards like, I'm still working a lot. But I'm right now trying to shift my boundaries even more to I'm at home right now, had my morning longer with my babies and got them off to other folks to have them watched while I'm working today. But like for a long time, in construction, I was up at 4, I worked out at 5, I was working at 6. It's like I just did that. And it was I can be so singular and aggressive and it is one of my superpowers again. But right now my kids are little. I have a baby girl. I had my baby girl while having Onyx. And I will say, having fought it out without as much staff on my own, having her, Lord, was that hard. I was working, I was in the NICU and I was working the day that I got her out of the NICU. It's real. But I do think the burden of, how these boundaries work of, now I own my life. There's the benefit. I want to enjoy this morning with my children. Now I own my life. The downside is I'm super responsible for all my projects. I just had a baby, but I'm the only one who really knows X, X, da, 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 having my own business here. It's real on both ends. I don't have answers. This is actually a debate my husband and I have all the time of like, how, as people, we want to respect everybody being able to communicate boundaries and figure it out. Our business now is all independent contractors, and we bonus folks based on performance. But for example, if you're just not working, you're not working, it's on you to save, do this or that, but we'll bonus you as you performance things. In the business I ran before, obviously, you like pay folks for a certain amount of leave. I don't have answers on how to support it as a society, but I do think as a society, we have to figure out how to support humans and having children or other important commitments outside of their work. And however they figure out that balance, if it's a parent, if it's volunteership, if it's a second business, if it's wanting to be home in your garden, whatever that is, or if it's children, how that integrates into life is real. And I don't necessarily at a large company scale have a vision on how to do it better. I just know now and always, I guess, I've sort of owned my life and fought for what my boundaries were because my kids are my everything. I'm not willing to trade these hours and days for giving them money in the future they can use for therapy. I just like want to be with them, deal with life on the daily. And as a part of that too, like I do love my work and I don't shield them from it. And you're right, they're a part of that too. They visit job sites, they're at the office, they see me on calls, they're used to that. I think that's healthy too of, mom or dad or whomever. Like we have to find our role in society. We want to share our gifts, get in our lane of brilliance, show up and do that well. It's okay to prioritize and value that. And I hope they also see that I close the computer, choose them, make their breakfast, those things too.
Yeah, I think that, there's a consistent thread with a lot of people I talk to that those of us who are really work focused and success focused and also doing the home thing, we saw that when we were growing up, right? So we saw a work ethic or we were presented with an option that was, you have to work hard in order to get somewhere in life. And so I think it's important, you're talking about like, yes, you are intentional with your time with your kids, but they also see mom's the boss, mom's working, this is where mom goes to do work. I just took this job at the college and I haven't met really anybody except the people that I have a relationship with there. And I showed up my first day to pick up all my stuff with my kids. And it was just like, this is where I'm going to work now. And this is where I'm going to be spending some of my time. And, I also just kind of assume that the people that work at this college are going to respect the fact that like, hey, this is who I am as well. And I think that that's the future of our society. Like there's a balance and I'd love to see more men doing that as well. One question I get a lot from younger women like leaving college or in their mid-20s is they're scared to have kids because they're scared that they will take a step back in their career. I don't always know how to answer that, and I would love to know if you have any thoughts on it.
Gosh, I feel like my perspective has changed over time too. I actually think it's important to plan if you can. I think it's important, and then also life throws things at us. That has been so fucking true for me. My babies, I was thankful to be able to plan each of them, but in any category, life throws things at you and you just need to be resilient and do your best with what comes your way for sure. But I do think now the advice that I would give is to, if you can, plan and understand what your goals are. If you do want to get to the position that you're overseeing, running a department, have more autonomy, can make good money on top of that, then getting into a company where that is a shared value, understanding the timeline to get into a role like that, or having the entrepreneurial ability to create your own thing would be important. Because like that is how you can create it. That's how that happens. Because I do think at times, like naturally, we just have to be realistic about our energy management. Now, for me, with every baby that I had, I refined, I shed stuff, I pruned things, and I refocused. So weirdly for me, each of my babies was a huge growth period for me. And for work, I launched every fucking time. With Fitz, I was like taking over a business, restructuring it. They were having literal cash flow existence issues. And I was like in it, doing it, structuring, throwing up because I'm pregnant, back at it, just like aggressively doing this thing. And then with Orion, I was like, we're going to rebrand and a new office and a new design and more projects and new sectors. In Cecilia, I was like I souped my first jobs. I was like finishing all of this like initial development design stuff, hitting that stuff, buying my projects out and then out in the field with my baby. I have life force realignment that's really powerful when I have my babies and I'm breastfeeding. I'm up at night I need to rest, and I see clearly that I shouldn't do these things, but I have to do these things. And that's how it works for me. Now, for other people, they feel cloudy the whole time, And so I think just being realistic of, everyone's lived experience is going to be different, and having grace, but setting up your support system if you can, getting to a place that you feel secure and stable emotionally, physically, financially. I think all of that would help women have better pregnancies, better births, better postpartums. I think there's so much fear, and I get it because I've lived it every time. It's real to go through that, and it's important to tap into community. And I think if possible, just plan and consider. For me with Fitz, I was needing to financially perform. When I had Orion, I had already financially performed pretty well and saved. And so I was in a place where I had more security ability. The business was doing well. That was nice. With Cecilia, I was aggressively doing again. The economics are very different now. If we buy something, develop something, build something, I can do really well with my small team versus running a large company. So it's just amazing. But I was at the ground level doing so many things again. All the ideas I had that I worked with staff on, I was now putting to work for myself and learning what works and doesn't work, which is amazing. But it was really stressful. So I feel like that pregnancy again was taxing, scary. Birth was scary, but got through it, right? I do think if possible, we as women, we as a community need to figure out how to come alongside women better in that process, energetically, emotionally, and in planning. And if possible, just trying to create, some of that support for yourself, or if you are pregnant, planning that and knowing you're going to need support, meals, folks checking in, etc. Planning it at the office too, to just give yourself that space.
Okay, I'm going to take a different direction here. When we're talking about construction, of the topics of DEI and women's place within the industry, and I think we both have very similar opinions in the fact that sometimes you get kind of mad about the fact that we're still talking about this. We're here, we're doing the work, we are not less than. In fact, sometimes we're more efficient. And just get your input on, future of construction. Where do women need to show up? What do we need to do better? Should we even still be talking about it? And if we are talking about it, what should be the tone around that conversation?
Yeah. So I do like talking about DEI too. I just have a slightly different frame, which I think we should just allow folks to go do the work that they want to do and make sure we don't have barriers in the way. So I think women, minorities, veterans, disabled folks, they should be anywhere they want to be, the percentage amount they want to be there. By nature, men and women are going to fall on this risk tolerance cycle of less to more risk tolerance, nurturing to more aggressive, analytical to more high level, right? We all live on these scales, and there's a lot of different scales, and men and women proportionally land in various places on it. My goal would be that we all can just authentically be who we are and figure out the right work for us, and that we don't artificially create barriers for women or men or anyone to go do the work that they want to do. I don't think women should be everywhere they want to be. I think they have value anywhere they want to be where their skill sets fit in and it makes sense. I see in a lot of our, every level in construction, I can imagine the right kind of woman, minority, veteran, disabled person being there if it's the right fit. But it's got to be the right fit, right? So I think for you, you have a lot of these directness skills. You love to plan. You're really good with follow through. You're great at working with men. And I'm excited to keep talking to you and exploring with you about working in the field, right? Not every woman wants that. The kind of work that is construction and development is hard. And we shouldn't sugarcoat it, but there are already the women in the market that want to be doing the work. We should just make sure folks like you want to do the work. Let's get the barriers out of the way and get you doing the work, right? What I do, it's aggressive. Most people wouldn't want to, or seeing how I have to show up in meetings to drive the work sometimes, for some people would cost them a lot of energy. It's in alignment with me. It works for me. It's in alignment with who I am. I'm here. Just don't say that I can't do it for a variety of reasons. Just let me do the work and compete and do it in the way that I want to do it, right? I think that's my thought on it is we should be anywhere that we can perform and compete and do well. We should just not have barriers to that. Ideally, too, I love the meritocracy. I like running my business as a attraction company. I like, in general, businesses being run more like a meritocracy where the data is just there on performance, like success looks like this, and we can just have that be clear so everybody can show up and deliver. You can see it doesn't matter it's just who's doing well, right? In nature, you're just, I guess, by my life experience, what I noticed was often my men or my male project managers, project executives, soups, etc., would be sitting on jobs that over time their decisions were resulting in the business losing some fee. So not hitting the target we wanted to hit, not getting it done on time. And we'd be sitting in annual reviews and they would still be wanting bonuses and salary increases, etc. And I noticed just by nature, my female staff would be driving projects that were a little more detailed in the tracking. They would be improving fee, being very clear, and they would be coming into their annual reviews like concerned, worried, not asking for as much. So I think just in nature, just noting some of those things too of like, about yourselves, like make sure you take in the data, that you're not just demanding something, but that you're really looking at the data of like, how are you performing? What does that look like? I think that would help all of us if we just got grounded in that, reduce a little bit of our ego and expectations, and just get grounded. And like, what does success look like? And let the data show itself, right? If a woman is like producing more in less time, and we're like, oh, well, okay, cool. Like, perception of that, right? Or if it's just not a fit and someone can't perform in the work, just think it's okay, it's cool. Like, that's not the right fit one way or the other. And maybe like remove a little bit of all of the, gender orientation and bias to all of it. Like, we can all just show up in these different job functions, but make sure that we can call out where we see barriers pop up and what they look like. So you talk about kids in balance. I do see that as a barrier to just keep exploring, not just for women, but for everybody. Barrier from being able to grow from just doing work to management is having the ability and the autonomy to be able to manage those things in your life. And sometimes you're seen as not showing up as much when you have those extra responsibilities and you haven't already reached this level. So I think that is a barrier, for example, that we should keep exploring, where data and a meritocracy helps it. Like, I don't care when you're working and how, if you're getting this done, you're hitting these metrics, it's looking good, awesome. You can go home, have your amazing evening with the kids, get back online to finish your few things. And like, I see you crushing it. Like, awesome, right? That helps remove that bias, that flexibility, as an example.
Yeah, I love one of the first times we got together recently, because we've known each other for a little while, but it's just been over the past couple of years that we've been talking more. And one of the things that I love that you said to me when I was talking about like, hey, I just don't feel like I'm at my full capacity yet. I feel like I can do more and different. And you were like, you said something along the lines of like, yeah, just because companies are structured certain ways, that does not mean that that's the way that I'm going to structure my company. And I want to try the things and see what works. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, then we pivot. And I think that that's super smart, and probably why you've been so successful at such a young age. I mean, because 37 to do all the things that you've done is fucking insane and super cool. So yeah, well, we have maybe 5 more minutes. And so I just wanted to, because I have like so many questions, so we might need to have another one, but your energy is always so high. Like, I was telling Josh, my boyfriend, about you, and he was like, so tell me about her. And I was like, when I'm in her presence, because I talk a lot, but when I'm in her presence, like, you talk so long, and I'm like in complete awe, because everything that comes out of your face is smart, it's thoughtful, and it's also intentional. And it's crazy when you have so much information like in your brain that's coming out all the time. I applaud you for that. But also, like, what do you do to relax? Like, how do you take a step down, and like, when do you level down and like just chill?
Yeah, I mean, I'm working on it. I think too, I have like things I do, and then it's like that's relaxing. But when am I actually like relaxed is another question. It's something I'm truly working on. Like, I have a lot of tools in my toolkit. We talked about healing. For me, whether it's breath work, different kinds of meditation, different kinds of physical practices, for example, like hot and cold therapies, things like that. Just regular therapy. I have lots of tools in my toolkit for health and well-being that I've had to develop over time that I can use. So I do use them to calm down, to power down. I do a grounding meditation every day. I try to meditate at least twice a day, but lots of kinds of modalities there. And that's really important to me. But another thing about me is that I just do have to relate with my own energy. Like we talked about listening to our souls, making decisions at that level. I run a lot of soul energy. That is the current I run in my life. I listen to that, and I am a very energetic being. If I would be analyzed when I was young, we maybe could have called me I'm a straight A student, hyper focused, ability to deliver kind of person. Still though, I'm very high energy. I've evaded being medicated or anything. I've just evaded in life, just working on skills to be. And one of those is just grounding, to relate to who I am and listen. And when I listen and can communicate and make good decisions at that level, I feel in alignment with my energy. So even though I'm high energy, I can feel at peace. When I'm out of alignment, like way too busy for too long, and I think that's right now what I'm coming out of is a long-term system of my nervous system being in hyper-arousal state. So much effort, so much work, maybe so many goals, things like that, where I can literally detach from the data coming into my body and just make choices all the time. And that's not the most healthy. It's not healthy for truly relaxing, truly feeling peace and alignment. So I feel like right now I'm back at my, okay, Jeff, you've got tools in your toolkit. How are you using them? Some of the tools there maybe don't serve me anymore. Like, being numb is a tool. I can make myself do things and not feel pain, but the pain's still happening. So
Yeah.
not a tool I want to choose all the time, right? But meditation, great tool. Doesn't seem like there's any bad side effects there. So that's one where I'm trying to lean back in. Exercise is key for me. I like every kind, so I try to practice every hit of what my goals are. So I try to lift heavy weights, run, do something for flexibility, yoga, and then dance every week, and then walk with my family whenever I can. I had a recent injury 6 weeks ago. It was a kind of a near-death life experience, so I'm not having my fitness like I normally would right now, going to get that back. But that's a really healthy thing for me when I'm recovered to try to relax. Yeah, and I think I'm just learning too in this season to shift into, hyper-arousal state and required to be productive all the time. Something I'm really working on is trying to designate time that's not about being productive at all. And it's really hard for me, to be honest. It's super uncomfortable. But I think that's going to be really important to get me to a place where I'm calm and not just overflowing all of the time. And just more receptive, even in communication, like you noted, like back and forth versus tons of communication. So those are the tools in my toolkit, and now it'll be on me to go back to them and choose them.
Well, I'm really excited to kind of be in your circle here and learning about you all the time. But I also just want to comment on the fact that I'm older than you, but also there's a lot of young women and women my age, your age, who are seeing the way that you carry yourself in these rooms and hearing the way that you say things and the way that you just, it's very matter of fact. It's just sort of like, well, why the fuck would we do that? Very straightforward, the way that you just say things. And so many of us, myself included, are just like, yeah, she's right. Why don't we just not, why don't we do that? Why don't we just push forward on this? And it's inspiring people. And it's one of the reasons that I want to do as much as I can to get you out in front of people, especially that's on my radar to just continue pushing you forward. Because just the amount of information in your brain and the amount of experiences you've had, but also the amount of humility and self-awareness you have, it's not normal. And it's not normal in the best way possible. So go you.
Thanks, Kristina. I feel like I'm in a really important season. I think we all can be, right? I think we're all in communication with God through ourselves, looking for our lanes of brilliance. So we're also like animals here, figuring it out, making mistakes. And that's a part of this. Like, we're here to have these experiences, to learn and to grow. Like, no one of us has it figured out. No one of us has the plan. We each have some real brilliance to share if we're listening and looking, and especially if we're not using power over tactics, if we're really listening. So I feel like that is one of the learnings out of this near-death life experience I'm having, is like just true humbleness of like, how, like, are you listening to how the way you're showing up affects people around you? Is it in alignment with your highest and best self? Are you harnessing your decisions and your energy on the daily to be in the best alignment with who you really want to be and you want to have? So I super appreciate the feedback. I really appreciate both. Thank you for the compliment and listening to receive that, and I hope always continued feedback and refinement in how I can show up and where I can show up. I super appreciate your leadership and showing up for me in this season of life, and including me on your amazing new podcast.
All right. Well, I got to scoot. You've got stuff to do. So I'm going to wrap it up here. Love this conversation. I can't wait to have more of them online and offline. So I'm looking forward to it. And thank you for being on today. I'm glad it worked out.